Monetization is the process of converting or establishing something into legal tender. It usually refers to the coining of currency or the printing of banknotes by central banks. Things such as gold, diamonds and emeralds generally do have intrinsic value based on their rarity or quality and thus provide a premium not associated with fiat currency unless that currency is promissory, that is, the currency promises to deliver a given amount of a recognized commodity of a universally agreed to rarity and value, providing the currency with the foundation of legitimacy or value. Though rarely the case with paper currency, even intrinsically relatively worthless items or commodities can be made into money, so long as they are difficult to make or acquire. The term monetization may also be used informally to refer to exchanging possessions for cash or cash equivalents, including selling a security, charging fees for something that used to be free, or attempting to make money on goods or services that were previously unprofitable or had been considered to have the potential to earn profits. Still another meaning of monetization denotes the process by which the U.S. Treasury accounts for the face value of outstanding coinage. This procedure can extend even to one-of-a-kind situations such as when the Treasury Department sold an extremely rare 1933 double eagle, the amount of $20 was added to the final sale price, reflecting the fact that the coin was considered to be issued into circulation as a result of the transaction. Monetizing debt. In many countries the government has assigned exclusive power to issue or print its national currency to a central bank. The government treasury must pay off government debt either with money it already holds or by financing it by issuing new bonds which are sold to either the public directly or the central bank, in order to raise the funds required to repay bonds that have come due. The central bank may purchase government bonds by conducting an open market purchase, that is by increasing the monetary base through the money creation process. If government bonds that have come due are held by the central bank will return any funds paid to it back to the Treasury. Thus, the Treasury may borrow money without needing to repay it. This process of financing government spending is called monetizing the debt. Central banks are usually forbidden by law from purchasing debt directly from the government. For example, the Treaty on the Functioning of the European Union expressly forbids EU central banks direct purchase of debt of EU public bodies such as national governments. Their debt purchases have to be from the secondary markets. Monetizing debt is thus a two-step process where the government issues debt to finance its spending and the central bank purchases the debt, holding it until it comes due, and leaving the system with an increased supply of money. Effects on inflation. When government deficits are financed through debt monetization, the outcome is an increase in the monetary base, shifting the aggregate demand curve to the right, leading to a rise in the price level. When governments intentionally do this, they devalue existing stockpiles of fixed income cash flows of anyone who is holding assets based in that currency. This does not reduce the value of floating or hard assets, and has an uncertain impact on some equities. It benefits debtors at the expense of creditors and will result in an increase in the nominal price of real estate. This wealth transfer is clearly not a parity improvement but can act as a stimulus to economic growth and employment in an economy overburdened by private debt. It is in essence a tax, and a simultaneous redistribution to debtors as the overall value of creditors' fixed income assets drop. If the beneficiaries of this transfer are more likely to spend their gains, this can stimulate demand and increase liquidity. It also decreases the value of the currency, potentially stimulating exports and decreasing imports, improving the balance of trade. Foreign owners of local currency and debt also lose money. Fixed income creditors experience decreased wealth due to a loss in spending power. This is known as inflation tax. Conversely, tight monetary policy which favors creditors over debtors even at the expense of reduced economic growth can also be considered a wealth transfer to holders of fixed assets from people with debt or with mostly human capital to trade. A deficit can be the source of sustained inflation only if it is persistent rather than temporary, and if the government finances it by creating money, rather than leaving bonds in the hands of the public. Revenue from business operations. In some industry sectors, monetization is a buzzword for adapting non-revenue generating assets to generate revenue. Websites that do generate revenue are often monetized via advertisements or subscription fees. a previously free product may have premium options added, thus becoming freemium. Failure to monetize websites due to an inadequate revenue model was a problem that caused many businesses to fold during the dot-com bust. David Sands, CTO for Citibank Equity Research, affirmed that failure to achieve monetization of the research analysts' models is the reason that debundling of equity research has never taken hold. Monetization of non-monetary benefits. Monetization is also used to refer to the process of converting some benefit received in non-monetary form into a monetary payment. The term is used in social welfare reform when converting in-kind payments into some equivalent cash payment. From the point of view of economics and efficiency, it is usually considered better to give someone a monetary equivalent of some benefit than the benefit in kind. Inefficiency. In the latter situation, people who may not need milk cannot get something of equivalent value. Black market growth. People who need something other than milk may sell it. In many circumstances, this action may be illegal and considered fraudulent. For example, Moscow pensioners often give their personal cards that allow free usage of local transport to relatives who use public transport more frequently. Changes on the market. Supply of milk on the market is reduced by the amount distributed to the privileged group, so the price and availability of milk may change. Corruption. Firms that should give this benefit have an advantage as they have guaranteed consumers, and the quality of the goods supplied is controlled only administratively, not by market competition. So, bribes to the body that choose such firms and/or maintain control can take place. Russian social welfare monetization of 2005. In 2005, Russia transformed most of its in-kind benefits into monetary compensation. Before this reform, there were a large system of preferences: free reduced price of travels on local transport, free supply of drugs, free health resort treatment, etc. for diverse categories of society, military personnel, the disabled, and separately, persons disabled due to WWII, Chernobyl disaster liquidators, inhabitants of Leningrad during the siege, former political prisoners, and just for all pensioners. This system was a legacy of the Soviet Union, but it was heavily extended by populist laws of central and regional authorities during the 1990s. By the Law 122th of August 22, 2004, this system was converted into cash payments by various means: abolition of preference, compensated by raising of wage or pension, for three most important preferences, a choice between this preference and some extra money. The main causes of friction in the reform were the following: technical and bureaucratic problems. Separation of all preference recipients into federal and regional accordingly to the body issuing a preference legislation. The largest group, that is pensioners, was regional. It was the main cause of problems. In poor regions, local government had to abolish these preferences with small or zero compensation. Even if these preferences were retained, they could apply only to pensioners of this region, so, for example, Moscow Oblast pensioners cannot use Moscow Metro and buses freely. The wave of protests emerged in various parts of Russia in the beginning of 2005 as this law started to work. But government measures eventually neutralized opposition. The long-term effects of the monetization reform varied for various groups. Some people received compensation in excess of the services they received. Some have found that the compensation is insufficient to cover the cost of the benefits needed. Transport companies and railroad have obvious benefits from monetization as they receive higher cash receipts when these categories use their services. Effects on medical system are controversial. Doctors and nurses have to use their time to fill in many forms to justify free receipts, thus reducing time spent on services. United States agricultural policy. In United States agricultural policy, monetization is a PL. 480 provision first included in the Food Security Act of 1985 that allows private voluntary organizations and cooperatives to sell a percentage of donated PL. 480 commodities in the recipient country or in countries in the same region. Under Section 203, private voluntary organizations or cooperatives are permitted to sell for local currencies or dollars in amount of commodities equal to not less than 15% of the total amount of commodities distributed in any fiscal year in a country. The currency generated by these sales can then be used to finance internal transportation, storage, or distribution of commodities, to implement development projects, or to invest and with the interest earned used to finance distribution costs or projects. See also, remonetization, demonetization, data monetization, patent monetization. References. External links, monetizing the debt.